Today, I'm going to delve into one of the most important elements of the Common Application system, which is the activities list. Now, to talk about the activities list as compared to the US undergrad application process as a whole, I would treat that as the first thing that my students would go through and would fill in before they even start brainstorming for their personal statement. Why? Because the activity list is a great opportunity for us to put down all the descriptions of our activities and basically the nitty-gritty details before we delve into the background story, which is to come in the personal statement. Without a good activity list, basically you're gonna be wasting your words in the personal statement and the supplement essays trying to fill in the information that you should have put into your activity list. So let's start by logging into our Common App account. So if you haven't already created one, please go ahead. So then you're gonna see that there's different tabs on top. You wanna go to Common App and then go to the Activities section. Now, once you go to the Activities section, you're gonna see that it's gonna give you some examples of stuff that you can input. For example, arts or music, clubs, community engagement, family responsibilities, hobbies, sports, work or volunteering, blah, blah, blah. Do you have any activities that you would wish to report? Of course, yes. Why wouldn't you want to report your activities? Now, you're going to see that there's total 10 rows available, and it's going to ask you a bunch of stuff. For example, activity type. There's a variety of activity types from research, school spirit, science, math, blah, blah, blah. And then it's going to ask you to put in the description for the position or leadership. And then it's going to have like organization name and then kind of like some space for a description. You're going to see that now the max characters is kind of small here. And so you definitely have to utilize the limited space in order to fill in as much information that you could. Now, after that, they're going to ask you basically how long you participated in these activities for. And it's based on, for example, like participation grade levels. So you could choose from 9 to 12 or even postgraduate. Most of you wouldn't be, taking postgraduate. So what colleges also look at is basically, how long have you done this activity for? And have you had any breaks in between, or did you just recently quit this activity? And if there are these kind of problems, we'll have to evaluate basically whether it's a very important activity that you want to put in, or do you want to explain that background information either in this activity list or in your personal statement. Now, it's also going to ask you what the time of participation is during the school year, during school break, or all year, and then it's going to ask for specific hours spent per week and weeks spent per year, right? And then in terms of these areas, you just want to give like a ballpark. It's really hard to count the specific hours sometimes, but don't exaggerate to a point where, it gets like unbelievable. Now, it's going to also ask you whether you want to participate in a similar activity in college. Of course, you're going to say yes. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't say yes for this. Okay, so let's actually take, a look at an example in terms of one of our previous students. So this is a full-on printed activity list that I took from this student's application. You're going to see that basically all 10 rows are filled in. If you don't have 10 activities right now, you have to start considering like, what are some activities that you haven't thought of that could be filled into this list. Or if you have some time before your application, let's say a year to build your portfolio, this is what you need to be thinking about. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty details. When I mentioned, let's say the leadership position, okay, so it's giving you like 50 max characters, right? So let's see how this other student filled in his leadership position. So he's the captain of whatever team. So leadership position, basically captain, right? And then organization name would be the team name that's afterwards, okay? All right, this is probably not a very good example, but basically on this PDF, it's split into two different, it's being put in the same role, but essentially, leadership position would be kind of like, team member, and then the organization name would be like soccer team or soccer, okay? So that's pretty straightforward. Now, in terms of organization name and leadership position, try to have everything, or even like other stuff, try to have everything in the full name. Don't put any abbreviations. Think about who your audience is, right? If your audience are American admission officers, think about whether they know what, club name, abbreviation in your school would be, right? Don't put like stuff like ABC or CBD club, right? Or BBC club, okay? They're not gonna understand what it means. Now, here's what's the more difficult part, which is the description section. It only gives you 150 characters, and not words, by the way, characters. Describe this activity, including what you have accomplished and any recognition you've received, right? So let's take a look at one of the activities here. So this student is a founder and chair of a charity organization in Hong Kong. I blocked the details out just for privacy purposes. Now, if you look at the description here, okay, raise however much money to fund a school library in rural China, comma, organized and coordinated bake sales, charity sports events, oversaw recruitment and expansion. Now, the makeup of this is really through brainstorming basically what roles you've had in that activity. So when I talk about roles, I don't mean the roles that particular organization has. I'm talking about your personal role in terms of how you contributed to that team, right? So, and we also want to be using action verbs, right? So he used like raised, organized, oversaw, right? And there's certain keywords that you want to use to make, I don't want to say like exaggerate your role, but to make it seem more professional, right? Recruitment, expansion, right? So if you're talking about business idea, or business activity, you want to be using such terminologies, okay? Now, the reason why we use bullet points or kind of like phrases here is to meet the really limited word limit, and we have to, in effect, take advantage of this really small space and cover as much aspects of your role in this activity as possible. Okay, the main goal of this is really to impress your admission officer, okay, to tell them everything that you've done here, and make it sound cool, okay? Now, let's go over down here, which is like participation in grade levels and time of participation, hours spent per week, weeks spent per year. Let's see how the student put, what the student put. So grade 11 to grade 12 as deputy head of, his house. Now, 3 hours per week being done, 40 hours per year, okay, and it's done throughout the school year, all right? So obviously he's going to continue doing this in university. That's pretty straightforward, all right? Now, let me do one just for fun, right? So let's say I'm in art club. I started like an art club, more specifically maybe the architecture club. So organization name, architecture club, okay? So I'm the founder and the president of the club. All right, description. All right, I'm gonna think of like maybe 3 or 4 major roles, all right, that I did, okay? So I founded, I already said that I founded the club, so maybe I shouldn't put founded club here, right? Okay, so recruited club members, all right. What else did I do? I mean, all founders of clubs kind of have to recruit members, right? So maybe this goes without saying. But what are some cool stuff that I do as architecture club president that actually is impactful and related to my major as an architecture student? I want to pursue architecture. So how can I use this resume to wow people? Okay, one thing is maybe I created an art wall on campus for students to post architectural drawings. Okay, boom. All right. And then so that's something that's impactful, right? I created something where that helped promote awareness of art or architecture on campus. All right. Maybe I also hosted architecture competitions. Okay. Or maybe, I also helped organize internships at local museum. Oh wow, there's still space. Maybe I also started. Oh, I was gonna say start an architecture podcast, but I can't put that in. But that's also important. Now, that's one of the major problems with the activity list is you can't fill in everything. in that low box. So right now we're gonna see if we can like, you know, make all the descriptions more concise, okay? So instead of created an art wall, we're gonna say created art wall. So maybe instead of architectural drawing submission, art submission. Ooh, start an architecture internship. Ooh, we're getting really. Okay, we're gonna have to sacrifice local. Here we go. Okay. Okay, this is like not a bad first draft, I feel like. All right. Now, this is also one of the dilemmas. It's that, you know, for example, like with the museum, I would actually prefer you put in the full name of the museum, especially if it's a cool, really cool one. So like the U.S. National Museum, right? Like, you know, that sounds legit. Okay, so participation grade levels. Okay, probably did this like maybe grade 11 and grade 12 during the school year. Let's say I put in like maybe 5 hours per week. You know, roughly, I guess like 40 weeks spent per year. Yes, boom. Okay. Now, one of the things you're going to run into when you start, you know, filling in different activities, I'm just going to do this randomly. Club A, B, C. All right, so this is basically, you know, just something that I'm going to put here, just to illustrate. Okay, so if we look at the preview, oops. Wow, what's going on here? Okay, we looked at the preview. So I haven't filled in like all 10 activities, but essentially like, you know, as you saw in the previous student's resume, right, after you fill in 10 activities, one important step is really to prioritize, okay, what's important on your activity list, right? You don't want the most important activity to be the last one. All right, so for this student, he's the captain of the big team, right? So, and he's done it throughout all 3 years. And his major choice is actually really related to debating. So we have that first, right? But then, you know, some of the less important activities would be maybe like volunteering at an organization or being a peer supporter, right? Or you know, these kind of like activities where you're not like a really huge, you don't take up a huge leadership role, or, you know, it's just not really related to your major. Okay, so in terms of prioritization, we think about a few things. The activities relation towards your major. Okay, that's one of the most important things. Okay, and then the second thing is, right, how long you've done it, your commitment, right? Have you done it for only 1 week or like 2 years? Okay, that also has an impact. Now, the third thing, which is equally as important, would be your leadership role. Okay, what is your role, right? You could do an activity for 4 years, but, you know, you're just sitting there, just listening. What's the point, right? So after you filled in, you know, you've exhausted your brain, like put down all the activities you've done, and kind of like put in all the descriptions and refined all the descriptions and the roles, and, you know, all that stuff. Then you can start prioritizing on the Common App. So how do you do that? Okay. So if we go back to activities, we filled in 2 of these. So there's an arrow here. You can click move up to have the basically ABC as your first activity, which you don't want because that's like you haven't done anything here. Okay. So you can kind of move up and move down just accordingly after you've filled in everything. Okay. Now, one of the main things that you want to be careful about is if you've done any summer programs at a university, don't try to put them into the activity list on the Common App, because there's another section for it, which is under education. And under education, there's going to be the part about colleges and universities. And that's a place where you can, you know, basically essentially like, let's say, you know, I've taken 1 coursework at a university summer program, and then, you know, you start filling in the information. And it also depends on whether you had a credit awarded by that college. So if yes, then click that. Okay. So make sure not to put in your summer programs in your activity list, or else you'll be wasting one of the spaces. All right. So this is a quick video. Actually, like this this video is intended for my students to quickly understand how to fill in their activity list before they have me review the activity list itself and kind of refine the word choice. But this is a first step for any student who wants to work on their Common App. So next step, in this series, we're going to talk about like how to craft your personal statement specifically for US and for the US Common App. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll be making more insider type of tutorial videos to help you get a head start in your US college applications. Thanks.